Let's see if this man mountain is indeed immovable. Wow. It's even more extraordinary when you see that Adam is not even taking a stance. He's not even transferring his weight from his back leg to his front leg. His feet are side by side, yet he's moving Brian with ease.
Hi everyone, welcome to TriEssence martial channel. And today we're gonna again talk about Adam Mizner's fake documentary, The Power of Chi. And you might wonder why I've been hammering this topic so hard recently. It's not that I have something against Adam Mizner. Well, I don't agree with the way he try to promote his abilities, but it's just that these things kind of all came up together. So I decided to just expand all of them at once and get out of the way. So what's interesting about today's topic is that now I'm gonna take the perspective of one of Adam Mizner's followers, his students, right? I'm gonna use that as a bit of an insight to understand what actually happened in his demo. But obviously, when you're watching a documentary or a demo of any kind, if you don't know the pre-arrangement of it, sometimes it's very hard to actually understand what's going on. But thankfully, in this case, his own student has actually come forward and tried to explain it and to further legitimize whatever they're doing. But in actually doing so, he actually did a disservice. I'm going to talk about that today. So, before we start, let's look at what his student had to say about this particular demo.
So Brian wasn't asked to push on Adam, he was asked to not let Adam push him.
Alright, so the most important thing in the student's explanation of the demo is that the strongman is not allowed to actively push. He's only allowed to try not to be pushed by Mizner. Okay, obviously Eric isn't a strongman, and I don't know a strongman in real life, but this would apply to a strongman regardless, it will apply to most people. So this is a very, very sneaky setup. It's to tell somebody that you are not allowed to push me, but you just have to resist and not let me push you. And furthermore, he doesn't specify a singular direction like, I'm going to push you that way, don't let me push you. So what that pretty much does is that it basically gives you nothing to effectively resist whatever Adam Mizner is actually trying to do. So, for example, when he's actually asking that strongman to try the same demo with somebody else that's not him, he allowed both of them to push into each other, as you can see in this clip here.
Actually,
and you were able to push him doing this?
Well, you were watching.
There's no way that.
So Brian wasn't asked to push on Adam, he was asked to not let Adam push him.
And you can see, right, so what happened is then the two people is sort of pushing into each other like this, and then the guy that is the strong man won because the other guy is not as big and strong, he get pushed back. So that is fine, right, when both people are actually pushing against each other. But when it comes to Adam Mizner, he said the guy isn't allowed to push. So what does that mean? Well, it just means that he's already losing, he can't win. Because he might be standing in a better balance, holding up his hand like this, right, like this. But without allowing to act, so if I touch him, he's not allowed to push into me. You see? So it's unlike a demo where if the moment I make contact, he's allowed to push me, and then we lock grip. And in which case I need a better structure to win against his push. But he isn't allowed to do that. He simply just have to let me push him and then resist it. But he doesn't know why I'm pushing him. So as a result, I might try to push him back when I feel any, when he tries to resist it, I'm going to do that, I'm going to push him. Obviously, he moves a lot more because he's same height and weight as me, and so which why it's hard to do to a strong man. But the thing is, you can still move a strong man around by manipulating, changing the direction you are trying to push. Which is why this entire setup is very unfair for the strong man. You see, we don't have any ability to maintain ourselves in inertia. Okay, when you're in inertia, even if you do tense all your muscles, those muscles are not actually having a vector, and therefore they're not actually producing any effective force, right? I mean, is that what you call it in physics? Like your muscle, that doesn't make you great at standing.
Yeah, I think well, inertia and momentum. So an object is harder to change course and move when you have momentum. So when you're standing still, you don't have any momentum.
But there's more force when you actually drum into one direction. So standing here, like no strongman in the world can stand here and then people can't push him off.
Well, unless you weigh like a mountain.
Yes, unless
Unless you're a wall, basically.
yeah. So the whole premise is unfair, okay? And the next thing, when I do apply a directional force, he had to match that directional force in order to resist me. He can't simply just stay stood and be tense, because I mean, there's nothing actually to push against, right? So he had to push against me. But if I don't tell him that I am pushing you backwards, he wouldn't know, and therefore I'm always having the upper hand, so my force is gonna have to affect him, and then he feels that and then react to it. And so he's always gonna be slower. And the moment that he reacts to it, I'm gonna change, and then he's always a step behind, and because he's a step behind and he's reacting slower, he's gonna be unstable. And then the moment he destabilizes himself, I can then do a harder push and make him go back. And that's pretty much what is the trick here, okay? Which is why this entire thing is just a bad setup. A legitimate demonstration, like in my lineage, we would always allow the person to apply force first. Because if someone is not allowed to apply force, like if I say, just stand still, right? But you're not allowed to push me, and I just come out and push him, it's very easy. Anybody can do that, okay? What's hard, what shows internal quality is when somebody is, I say, and I'm gonna hold him, and I'm like, yeah, and then we first lock grip, and then I adjust my structure to overpower him. That is where you show internal quality. Having somebody standing there and then just pushing someone, anybody can do that, okay? So that's the first thing. And second thing, right, his student then talks about the feet position.
Or skills. So there's the line along his heels. So he's at a huge disadvantage here with anyone, let alone with the mountain that is Brian Shaw. So there's the direction of force of the stance of Brian. The natural direction of force is where you can see the arrow now. So Brian wasn't asked to push on Adam, he was asked to not let Adam push him.
So what's basically saying that Adam Mizner is in a neutral stance which has no back support, so that if somebody pushes him, he's gonna fall off. That's correct. And the other guy is he actually the other leg in front. They just imitate it. Like so, then this is a better stance. That's correct too. However, what you notice in that video is that the other guy's leg is in the middle of Adam Mizner's leg. So if I'm standing in this stance and Eric's leg is in the middle, that means he has a better access to my center of balance, and this is very bad for me. But the way that they position, he's standing like that, but Adam Mizner is standing here. So these 2 feet are in the same line, and I'm off the center of that person.
Or skills. So there's the line along his heels. So he's at a huge disadvantage here with anyone, let alone with the mountain that is Brian Shaw. So there's the direction of force of the stance of Brian.
Which actually makes it harder for him to access my center. When he does, he's not 90 degrees angle to my legs. It looks like that, but it's not. And furthermore, when I'm pushing him, I'm also not pushing toward his best support. If I'm like in the middle here, I'm pushing against his best supporting leg, and that makes it difficult. But when I'm standing like this, when I'm pushing him, by default I'm pushing him that way, and he has no balance there. So again, this whole feet setup is also tricked. It's not a fair setup like they presented to be. Well, not fair, but it's not what they claim it to be. It's not a setup where he put Adam Mizner in a severe disadvantage. Okay, in this particular setup, actually he's only in a very minor disadvantage. And adding to that, the guy is not allowed to push. If the guy's not allowed to push, then this entire neutral stance means nothing, because if nobody's pushing me, of course I can stand like this and not lose balance. And you might say, okay, but what if, if I'm pushing him and if he's strong, I'm going to push myself back. Well, that's why he doesn't push that hard, right? And then you can see in this clip here, he pushes the guy and then he backs off, and then the guy tries to resist and immediately loses balance. And when he loses balance, he has to readjust himself because he's not allowed to push back, remember? He's not allowed to actively go into Adam Mizner's space and push him back. He's only allowed to resist. So the moment Adam Mizner pulls back, he loses a bit of balance to readjust himself, and that moment Adam Mizner come up and push him again and got him to move back.
Yet he's moving Brian with ease.
So the whole thing is just a trick that it's like a tug back and forth, right? So what you saw in that video just now, basically, so he's standing like this, he's pushing a little bit, and the guy resists, and then he does this. And the moment I do this, he had to not wanting to fall over, so he readjusts himself, And when he does that, I just push him again, and then it will make him go back.
Yet he's moving Brian with ease.
And every time he does something, you can see that he's always, doing something to slightly. I mean, it's not as big, right? He's not doing this to a guy, but he's always readjusting a bit to make sure the guy is uncomfortable, and then attempt to push him.
Let's see if this man mountain is indeed immovable. Wow. It's even more extraordinary when you see that Adam is not even taking a stance.
He's not going in the full lock and overpowering him while he's in his best pushing against him. Okay?
There's no way that.
And again, you just understand how the trick works. You can apply it to most people in your life. You can now right away get up, find a friend, try your parent, whoever, and try this. And if you understand what I'm saying, it will work. And here's another interesting clip where you see Adam is pushing, and then I don't know if by mistake or what, he then end up pushing the guy's chest. And you can see that when he pushed up the guy's chest, it's actually not working, which is why he pushed a bit, and he changed back to the hand, and when he changed back to the hand, he immediately pushed the hand that way. But there's also a very interesting detail, because the reason he doesn't want to push the chest is because he actually can't overpower that guy. Generally speaking, pushing the arm is less desirable than pushing the chest. Because the arm is an extension, and there's more you can change, and there's more variable to it. But if I push somebody on the chest, I can basically catch his middle and push him off balance. The only time we don't want to push somebody in the chest or engage in the center of balance is when they're bigger than you and stronger than you. Which one in this case, Adam Mizner touch the chest, push the bit, and then back off and grab the arm. But you might say, okay, I just said that pushing the arm is harder, so why would Adam Mizner push the arm and not the chest? Well, in this case, that guy isn't allowed to push back. Although he isn't actively trying to get an angle on Adam Mizner. His hand is just holding in like this. Right? So in this case, then the hand is easier than pushing the chest. And you can see that the moment he got the hand back again, he tried to ink it this way. And what that does is basically helping him to use some joint discomfort, so that it's almost like a Falcon and a lever, right? I'm applying force this way rather than directly into his chest. Over here, he can pretty much push against me, and it's going to be force on forward. But if I'm grabbing, I'm doing it, I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna do that. See, it's easier to move somebody when you're yanking his arms that way, because then there's more joint involved, and his body can't actively resist here, and you controlling a lever will amplify the amount of force you can apply versus him. Another reason why he keeps using the hand is because you can manipulate the guy's arm by pushing in, pushing out, pushing down, left, right, and then confusing. But it's much harder to do that on the person's chest. So that's another piece of evidence of what's actually going on in that demo and how he is able to overpower that strong man by standing like this. And because of all these points, right, this entire demo is not a legitimate demo showing chi power or even structure power. What it does show is that if you can move around and change the direction your force is applying, you can overpower somebody that is stronger. So that part is legit. However, what he markets his whole thing as him in the inferior stance, overpowering someone that is much bigger than him and like a strongman champion, that whole thing is utterly BS and nonsense. Okay, that's not what actually happened. He's putting the guy in a very poor position to be able to resist whatever he's trying to do. If you allow the guy to actually push against him, that will not happen at all, which is why he never did that. Okay, so a legitimate demo in Tai Chi, like what we do, we always, number one we commonly do is when Eric grabbed my wrist, and when we're in this engagement, I allow him to push me first. I always tell him that firstly, he's allowed to push me. Secondly, I tell him I'm going to push you that way, and don't let me push you that way. And then I do that. I don't, tell him I'm going to push you that way, I'm going to yank him that way. I mean, that's cheating. That doesn't. I mean, in a real fight, maybe it works, but that doesn't show any structural power. That just shows you deceive the guy. Okay. To show real structural power, it has to be fair. So he has to be able to push against me with everything he's got, and he has to know that I'm going to go against him, so he can make the right preparation. And when he already done everything, and then I overpower him, then that is some merit toward structural force versus brute strength or whatever, So that's the only time when it's legit. Or for example, when I'm doing an 一拳 demo, for example, sending, I will also always tell the person I'm gonna push you back and try not let me push you back. Obviously, I will also specify, for example, I'll say that I'm gonna push you on your chest and backwards. You're not allowed to do this. Because obviously that's become a different type of content. I'm just showing you the 发力 in 一拳. But I make sure that they understand I'm pushing you back and don't let me push you back. If I just tell somebody to stand here without telling him anything, I walk out and I go and I push him back, that's also cheating. But he's not even understanding what's going on, right? He's not expecting anything. I mean, sure, it's a sucker punch, but that's just like, showing how you walk up to a random guy, punch him in the jaw and knock him out. Does that prove anything? No. It just proves you're an asshole and you can sucker punch someone. So, in a structured demo, the guy needs to know what to expect. And if he knows I'm going to push him back, and I still push him back, that means there's some merit in this whatever training that I'm trying to promote. Another thing is, right, obviously I can also cheat and push him back that way because his stance is not standing like that. But that's cheating as well, which is why in my lineage, we don't do that. We always tackle the guy at the hardest point. If his leg is over here, I'm going to push him against his leg. Only then is this demo actually have a purpose. And also, if it's in a training session, it gives a clear indication of my capability in structural force. If I take any of these shortcuts, pushing to the angle, or trying to do a trick, for example, I can also when he stands like this, I can also pretend to push him, and then when he already done his resistance, and I push him again. There's a lot of tricks you can do, it makes it easier, but those don't show internal quality, doesn't show structural force, doesn't show 发力. It just shows that you can trick someone. Sure, in the real context, tricking someone in a fight is great, but it's not as a demonstration of structural power. In structural power, you want the guy to know fully well what to expect. And if you can so disrupt him, then there is something, right? Same with like 示力. I always tell people, I'm gonna weigh you down, don't let me weigh you down, or I'm gonna spin you around, don't let me spin you around. You always have to tell somebody what to expect. Obviously with 示力, you can't tell them to actively resist you first because it comes in the split of a moment. But anything that can make contact beforehand, I always allow the person to push against me. That's very important in order to demonstrate something in a fair setup, okay? And the problem with a lot of these woo type people is that they don't have a fair setup. The whole thing is rigged in their favor, and in doing so, makes themselves look good. And also, it helps them to sell this whole woo mystical cheap power, and that's a very despicable thing in my opinion, right? Everyone's got a different moral standard, but I hate this, which is why I eventually quit the advertising industry because I just don't like selling lies to people. And I have a huge problem with these things, which is why a lot of my videos are dedicated in debunking these incorrect claims and overselling of something that is actually not as impressive. Alright, so I hope this video has made sense to you, and I hope you can find your friend, try it out, and see what I'm saying if it's real. If you do enjoy the video, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, and if you can support me on Patreon, that would be greatly appreciated. As always, a shout out to all my Patreon supporters. Thank you so much for your support. And there's a lot of videos on my Patreon channel exclusive, which talks about the scientific understanding on internal structure, for fundamental forces of internal, and how it is applied to 一拳 and 无形通背. If you want a better scientific understanding away from all the woo-woo cheap power thing of internal martial arts, then do consider subscribing to my Patreon support channel. Thanks for watching TriEssence Martial channel, and I'll see you next time.